Stuck between two trees.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the 6th episode of Obsessed and So Obscure, a Matt Berry music podcast. I'm Courtney, and we have with us Jesse.
Hello.
And Tara.
Hey.
Today we are going to be tackling one of my all-time favorite albums, Kill the Wolf. And I imagine this is going to be a pretty quick and straightforward episode because we all agree that this is one of the greatest albums ever made, right? So we're just going to run through it. Now, I think we're going to have some strong opinions on this album, so strap yourself in. We're going to start just from the beginning with the title of the album because it is a pretty evocative title. And Matt's given a few explanations for this title over the years. He actually, during the album's release cycle, back when he had kind of a mini blog on his website, themattberry.co.uk, he wrote what was, I think, kind of called a journal entry talking about what inspired this album title and some of the concepts behind the album. And he wrote,
"The idea for the new album came from an incident that occurred not that long ago. Hang on, I'm jumping ahead. I'll begin again. The new album is another pastoral folk journey, but this time with a slightly more sinister edge. Is it about someone? You, me, the devil, entering your village in your life? That idea is not always so literal as when I was writing this, I was interested in the devil in all of us. When I was at university, a man who I considered to be an idiot at the time informed me that inside every human being is an angel and a devil, fighting for our attention with equal force. It is up to us as individuals as to who we allow to win. The reason for me having to endure this speech was due to my horrific timekeeping, but more importantly, the fact that I must have reeked of alcohol whenever we met. His words at the time seemed trite, almost Sunday school in their simplicity. In fact, I remember almost walking away before he had concluded his point. That was my favorite social weapon at the time. I know. But he looked straight at me, he didn't blink or say a word, which weirdly made me unable to move. A social weapon that I quickly stole from him. Whatever, I imagine I left his office and headed straight towards the bed of a cleaner student or happy hour and thought very little of it. Roll on nearly 20 years. After a night of considerable intake, I, with the lady friend of the time, headed back to my flat so we could continue our dreadful excesses. After a couple of hours into the dawn, I remember asking my friend who was sat next to me a question, which she completely ignored. Staring straight in front, she didn't move. I repeated the question and was greeted with total silence. After what seemed like a yonk, she turned towards me and in a voice that sounded like a World War II veteran and told me that I should get out now before the light comes up. I will admit I nearly dropped my stomach. I have never been so terrified in my life. My instinct at the time was to make light of it in a lame attempt to evaporate the atmosphere. It wasn't 2 seconds before I turned back, terrified that she would be glaring back at me, or worse, that I saw her lying with eyes shut in what looked like a deep sleep. I awoke her and reminded her of what had just happened seconds before as calmly as I could. She had no memory of any such one-sided conversation, and was in fact fairly adamant that she had been asleep for a while. I conducted the rest of the eve/morning with absolute caution. It was this incident that reminded me of my ex-tutor's words, and thus was part inspiration for the Kill the Wolf album. And no, I did not imagine it.
So that is kind of the long version of what Kill the Wolf is all about. In an interview around that time with the Velvet Onion blog, which we've quoted before on this podcast, he gave a little more concise summary of what Kill the Wolf means to him. And what he said at that time is, it's a metaphor for the good and bad that we have within us. He explains the title and the record's central concept, and our ability to keep one on top so the evil doesn't win. We have this evil image of a wolf, because whenever a kid went missing in an old English village, they'd always blame a wolf, so killing the wolf is basically stamping out the bad side. That could be not taking drugs, or just having more time for certain things.
So this album was released in June, I believe, of 2013. And it was first released, I believe the first release was not a gatefold, but this is in fact our first gatefold album from Acid Jazz. And it was released first on black, and then at some point there was a black and a translucent red. The timeline for all of this is a little vague, but then it was released also in the splatter print, which was available only in the Kill the Wolf box set. And then in 2021, most recently, it was re-released in the bottle green, which is such an amazing color between the splatter print and the bottle green. They're like two of my favorite albums that I own. So the cover of the album, cover photography is by Ben Meadows. Actually, all the photography is by Ben Meadows. The cover, it just shows Matt standing in a field. Probably everybody's familiar with it if you've ever listened to this album. And it looks totally normal, except for on his left hand, he has a cloven hoof. So, which is kind of fun. And then on the back, he's just waving, same cloven hook. And then the inside of the gatefold, Matt is lying on his back with headphones on. He's surrounded by instruments that are like superimposed. And he's reading a book called The Hedge Witch, which it's called The Hedge Witch, a Guide to Solitary Witchcraft by Ray Beth. The excerpt of the book says the author extols the feminine principles of healing and regeneration, as well as attacking greed and self-interest, which jeopardize the planet's very future. And the book was released under the title The Wiccan Path in the United States, which just doesn't at all have the same ring to it. I don't know why, if we both speak English, why things are released in one country under one title and a different title in a different country, like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone versus the Sorcerer's Stone. I don't know. It doesn't make sense, but I probably would have been more likely to buy it if it was called The Hedge Witch.
They always dumb it down for the U.S.
Really? That is... Okay, let's just be honest. That's what it is, right? They're dumbing it down.
That's exactly what it is. They
They're
don't
like-
think we know what the word philosopher is. They don't think we can handle, like, a 6-word title, so they cut it down to 3.
They're not going to know what a hedge witch is. We'll just call it the Wiccan Path. That's much more straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Visualize the path.
Right. So the album has so many witchy themes to it and sounds. I think that this book, if he actually really did read it, is kind of probably a real inspiration for a lot of things that are happening with the album itself and the illustrations on the album, which are very cool. The illustrations on the sleeve of the record they're done by an artist called Fuchsia Warrenberg.
Which is just a fantastic name.
It really is.
Yeah.
She totally sounds like somebody that would be doing this type of illustration. So one of the illustrations is Matt's face on a stag. Like it's a stag, only instead of the deer face, it's Matt's face. And I believe this is a direct reference to the Wiccan philosophy of a horned god. The horned god is worshipped in witchcraft and modern paganism, and it represents the male aspect of nature. There's also a twin-tailed siren / mermaid, which you can see every single day on the Starbucks logo. It's called, the name of this actual siren is called Melusine. And in alchemy, it's a creature of enlightenment. The 2 tails represent earth and water, body and soul. She's also seen as a fertility goddess in some mythology. The hands that are towards the middle are part of the Buddhist and Hindu cultures called mudras. The hand that's furthest to the left is a sign of the horns, which is used to protect against evil. The middle hand is the Shuni Mudra, that it enhances sensory sharpness and intuitive powers while cleansing the body of toxic thoughts and emotions. And the hand to the furthest to the right, I actually couldn't find anything about. It's possible that it was drawn incorrectly with the placement of the thumb, but it's possibly it was an air symbol. I don't know. There's a few drawings of humans with wolf heads, and this is called cynocephaly. And this particular creature appears in all sorts of legends and myths. Werewolves, most commonly in the Native American culture. They're sometimes known as skinwalkers. And then there's a nude figure on an illustration of a nude figure also, which could represent witches doing spells and incantations in the nude. I don't know. This is just kind of what I found when I did my research. I don't know if Matt had any direct influence on any of these images or if he just told the artist, draw something witchy. So, but I think it's pretty interesting too.
It definitely
Good
is.
job on the research. That was awesome.
Thanks.
Yes. One thing that is kind of unique to this album up to this point in Matt's career is that there are quite a few guest appearances from other well-known prominent musicians on this album. And as we talked about during Witch Hazel, it was a pretty solo endeavor. There were a few guitar solos from other musicians, and obviously Matt rarely plays the drums on his own albums, but for the most part, Matt played really everything but the drums and the woodwinds, which are handled as usual by Cecilia Phage. Here, he actually has some other musicians guesting on guitar, guesting on various other instruments. He talked in an interview with the Quietus website back in June 2013 about how these guest appearances came about. And what he said at that time is Mark Morris of the Bluetones singing is quite a bit on it, and he's a very old friend. I'd always loved his voice, and I knew that I wanted him on it. And then there's Eric Johnson from the Shins and Fruit Bats. Again, I'd always been a huge fan of his. I love his voice, and he's all over the album. I wrote something about him on Twitter when one of his albums came out, and he got back straight away and said equally that he'd been watching what I was doing. We should do something. So as soon as I was putting the album together, he was the first person that I thought of. Alex Robertshaw of Everything Everything's the same. I love his guitar playing. We knew each other, and I thought that it would be cool for him to do something that he doesn't normally do, so that's why the slide guitar fell out. He doesn't do that in his band, and that's great to hear him do something that you don't normally hear him do. He's an amazing technician, and he's a lovely bloke, so I was lucky to get him on there. So we'll kind of mention as we go where you hear some of these guest musicians. It's not necessarily obvious listening to the album itself. They tend to blend in really smoothly with Matt's style. But we'll try to kind of point out when those songs have some of the guests so you can tune your ear to them.
Are we ready to G this? Are we ready to talk about the music?
Oh, I'm bracing myself.
born ready.
To feel some emotions here.
All right, let's start at the beginning. Gather up.
Gather up the dill and the thyme and the walnuts, the fennel and the sage and the garlic and the foxglove. Gather up the mint and the lemon balm and henbane, mistletoe and mandrake, the poke and the nightshade. Gather up the dill and the thyme and the walnuts, the fennel and the sage and the garlic and the foxglove. Gather up the mint and the lemon balm and henbane, mistletoe and mandrake, the poke and the nightshade.
This is one of the best intro songs that I have ever heard on any album.
What?
This is, how is this not?
Sorry.
Wow.
He's good at intros. Sorry. He's good at intros. I didn't mean to cut you off. He's good at intros. So far from what we've gone through with his stuff, this is like, anyways, no, sorry. Continue.
This song is so powerful that this is what he chose to name his greatest hits collection after.
Yes. He loves it. You can tell. Yeah.
I kind of thought it was more of a literal reference, like, gather up my stuff. But, I mean, it might not be.
Works on multiple levels.
thought
Okay.
Yeah, it works on multiple levels.
Yeah.
It's the most obvious reference to witches and spells on the album. It basically just goes right for it.
Just too repetitive. Like, I like the music. It just does not stop. It's too repetitive. It just gets at me a little bit after listening to the whole thing.
That's a big part of why this song works for me, though, is it really does feel like a chant or an incantation. It has this hypnotic spell-like quality that just builds in intensity. It kind of turns into a round as the song progresses, and it just feels like it kind of descends on you. It really feels like you are having a spell put on you.
Yeah, that's a really good description. That's exactly what it feels like because
Yeah.
it does build in that as it gets, it feels like the song gets more powerful as it goes along. This song also was in the end credits of the Witches episode of What We Do in the Shadows. And that was season 2, episode 9, if you're keeping tabs. It ran through the end credits. So obvious reference to witches for the song.
You know, something that I've said on pretty much every album we've talked about so far, and I'll probably keep saying, is that Matt loves an overture. I mean, this man might not have acted in musical theater, but he's kind of a music theater geek at heart. And he loves to kind of lay the scene. And even if it's not as literal an overture as we saw in something like Opium, it definitely has that feeling of laying the scene, kind of laying down what the album's about. It's funny that I played this song for my mom a while back, who had no idea who Matt was, didn't really know that he was an actor. And the first thing that she said is, it reminds me of Les Mis. It's got this really theatrical feel to it. And
It totally does. Somebody commented on something on social media and said that Matt paints with his words, I think is what they said. And I thought
really
that was
does.
really such a good description because he really, really is very good at that. And this song is a very good example of that.
For me, just perfect intro, perfect lead off to, spoiler alert, what I think is a great album. I'm going to give it 5 out of 5 stars.
Although I think it is a very good intro, this is actually my least favorite song on the entire album. I think it just because it is a little bit too literal for me. Like it really is kind of black and white. It's a spell kind of thing, which is fine. It's totally fine. It's just not my taste particularly. So out of everything on this album, this is my least favorite one. And I gave it 2 stars. And that's not because I don't think it's good. I just, as far as everything else, I think this one it's just my least favorite song on the whole thing.
That's
Wow.
very fair. I like that Courtney and I were both like, what? But like, you were like, what? Because you're like, this is so amazing. And I was like, what? There are way worse songs on this album.
Oh,
Sorry.
boy.
I gave it a 2.95 out of 5. I really like it. I just find the lyrics too repetitive. That's all.
It's a chant, guys. It's a spell.
I
It's supposed
know.
to be repetitive.
And I actually think
don't
that
like
that's just the part that I kind of am like, it's a little too literal for me.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
I get it, but I'm like, nah, I don't like it.
Because also to me, this album as a whole, I know it still goes back to the horrors of the countryside, but to me, it kind of feels more like nature. Like, well, I guess then that would fit too, because, Wiccans and pagans and stuff are very nature-centric, but to me, it's almost like a changing of the seasons more than the horrors of the countryside. So I kind of feel like maybe it was a little bit forced in there, like too literal. I think it's too literal. That was my problem with it. Too literal.
Get on board with that.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I will fight my urge to convince you both of your wrongness and instead move on to Devil Inside Me.
Come try to find me, don't ever wake me. Stay close by me, don't ever lie to me. You don't say a word, you look straight at me. That's all I need now, the devil's inside me. All that I could be is all that I'll never be. Obsessed with this journey of houses and money, with nothing to play for, no one looks at me. That's all I need now, the devil's inside me. Hello, yes, I'm not too sure who I'm meant to be. Did you want the priest or the adversary? I'd blow your mind when I'm up, I fall back down again. It's true, you remember we met at the old Goose Fair. I hate to admit that I was never there, but I blow your mind when I'm up.
And this song is a pretty abrupt transition from Gather Up. Gather Up kind of stops pretty sharply, and then you get this opening guitar note, A Devil Inside Me, and it really jolts you. It feels almost to me like a transition from a dream state going to waking wide up, which is something that Matt loves to do, and you see a lot in this album too, is this kind of juxtaposition of sort of quiet, more ballad-like songs to really loud, propulsive songs. But it does continue the chant-like feel that you get from Gather Up. The chorus, or he sings up high, fall back down again, almost feels to me a little bit like a nursery rhyme. And yeah, that's all I got there.
So this also, I should mention that this is the first song where you have some guest appearances. This is one with Eric Johnson from the Shins and the Fruit Bats, and also Mark Morris from the Blue Tones, also part of the Maypoles, make an appearance on this song. This song, to me, it sounds just like a literal struggle with inner demons, good versus evil, maybe somebody that has some possible anger or temper issues. There's a lot of opposite themes happening throughout the entire album, like a yin and yang kind of feel. There's a really amazing fiddle solo in the middle, which just takes it, just soars after that. The fiddle instrumental is by Catriona Gilmore, and it's just so good. And then I don't know if something else that it makes me think of is maybe just a personal struggle with the highs and lows of being in the public eye. But yeah, I think it's a really amazing song. I really love it.
Like a lot of the lyrics on this album, the words of the song kind of work on multiple levels, because they definitely could be read as struggling with being in the public eye, with struggling with just kind of internal conflicts. But there's also this other layer where it's a very literal kind of folktale about literally the devil being inside of you. Something that I found really kind of cool about this song, I had to look up the reference to the Old Goose Fair just because the nerd in me had to know if that is a real fair. And it turns out it is. It's one of 3 fairs in England which bear the name Old Goose Fair, but the largest and best known of these fairs is the Nottingham Goose Fair. And as many of you are aware, Matt went to college at Nottingham Trent University. So this is a fair that he was probably very familiar with and most likely attended. The Nottingham Goose Fair, no one's sure exactly when it got started, but historians think it might have been around in some form for up to 1,000 years. It started as kind of a trade fair. They would sell geese, hence the name. And now it's more of like a fun fair, carnival with rides and sideshow attractions. My favorite fact about the Nottingham Goose Fair was that in 1764, there were what are now known as the cheese riots over the rising cost of cheese at the fair. And it ended with the mayor of Nottingham being toppled by a giant wheel of cheese, which, you got to go somehow. And that's maybe how I would choose to die.
There's something similar that happened in Boston. I don't remember when, I don't know, like 1700s. I'd have to go back and research it because I didn't know anything about that story, and that's really, really funny, actually. I mean, sad for him and his family, but interesting. But yeah,
to be fair, it didn't
As
say
we're
that he was
laughing,
killed by the wheel of cheese, just that he was toppled by it. So hopefully he made a full recovery and got some cheese out of the deal.
just instantly made me go to that episode of Toast where he got flattened by the steamboat.
Yes.
That's what I feel like he looked like after getting run over by a wheel of cheese. But something happened in Boston. I want to say it was like the 1700s or early 1800s with like a molasses factory exploded, and like molasses just flooded the streets of Boston, and like people
It killed a lot of people.
Yeah. I'm like
Yeah.
laughing because it's a funny image, but at the same time a lot of people died. That's just you just
Yeah.
don't imagine things like that happening.
No,
But
but
anyway.
it's sad, but also it's funny at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Like
we're so far back from it. It's been a couple hundred years.
it's not
We
too
can
soon.
finally laugh.
It's not too
Exactly.
soon. We can get over it.
Yeah.
We don't know any of the
So-
molasses victims.
No, not. Sorry if anybody who's listening is like a great descendant of
I
one.
did see it.
We
I went
do
to the
care.
I went to the spot where it happened though, because I took
Oh, yeah?
when we were just in Boston in August and took a Segway tour, and that was one of the stops was the Great Molasses Incident or whatever it was called at the time, which is now
Apparently-
a baseball field.
It smelled like molasses on hot days for like decades and decades and decades.
Crazy.
Is that a bad thing? Molasses
I
smells
I
like
don't
think
know.
so.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you lost somebody in the molasses accident, it would be a bad thing. You're like,
it would be a painful reminder.
yeah. You're like, I'm
Oh my
hungry,
gosh.
but I'm sad.
What has happened?
Okay. Sorry, we go off on tangents. So my take on this song, I've always thought it was about a relationship. So I love like talking to you guys about this stuff because I seem to always be so far off from what you guys think. So, hello, yes, I'm not too sure who I meant to be. Did you want the priest or the adversary? Do you want the bad guy? You want me to play the good guy? You want me to play the bad guy? And then when he's like, but I'd blow your mind when I'm up high to fall back down again. To me, that's classic being with somebody who has, manic depression or bipolar. When I'm up, I'm good. I'm real good. You're going to be bewitched by me. But then it's all going to come crashing down. And eventually you're going to figure out that we never met at the Old Goose Fair. And I've been lying to you this whole time. And you're going to be so pissed. That's how I've always taken it. I love the line about the Old Goose Fair, I was never there. I don't know. I don't know what it means. That's just it was always like about a relationship in my head where he's fooling this lady.
Yeah, I totally agree. I get that every time I hear it too. That there's some sort of an anger / temper bipolar situation happening.
So I give it. I don't love this song, but I give it a 3 out of 5. I think some of the lyrics are just totally kick-ass. There's some parts of the song I don't love, but no, the lyrics are really good.
Tara, I don't believe it because I was bracing myself to butt heads with you on every single song, but I'm also going to give this a 3 out of 5.
Oh, wow. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I really like this one.
It's us against you, Jesse.
Yeah, well, I made
Full
up for
surprises here.
my 2 on the first one, I guess. Maybe a little bit. All right, moving on to Fallen Angel.
Like a brown sound, nothing to prove. Turned my face to the floor, forgotten my shoes. But I shouldn't be here, it's dangerous for you. I thought I was clear, I should be on the move. I'm so adverse to change, it strains my heart, fills me with horror as milk from the fallen angel flows through my veins and fills my heart with another man's aims.
So he starts with, I just think it's a really interesting line. So the song starts right out with like a brown sound. And that's not a description that I'd ever heard before, but as soon as you hear it, you kind of just know in your head what a brown sound is. I kind of really like that.
I don't. What's a brown sound?
Like a bad sound, like something maybe that goes bump in the night or something that just doesn't seem normal, kind of just an unpleasant sound. That's how I think of it.
Black sound, I would have thought of that. I've never heard a brown sound before, so I was like, what do you guys think? I was
pretty sure he just made it up, but that's what I think it is.
I always thought of it as being like a blue note or like a note that's a little discordant.
Yeah. Something just that's doesn't settle right, that's just
not
off.
Pleasing.
Just off.
Yeah, exactly.
He also makes a reference to shoes in this, and I think this might be the first song where he references shoes, but this is something that comes up a lot in his lyrics.
This isn't even the first song, or it's not even the last song where he talks about forgetting his shoes, because on Where's My Love, on Phantom Birds, a few hours later, he also talks about forgetting his shoes.
Yes.
Man needs to keep track of his shoes.
I just think it's funny that it's a theme that comes up, but he does seem to really like shoes. Boots, anyway.
Boots, specifically.
To me, this song...
Can't keep track of them.
Yeah. To me, this song kind of sounds like it may have been something like a one-night stand or in a relationship with somebody that he maybe shouldn't have been in with, who maybe was unavailable, and he was just saying, you shouldn't be here, it's dangerous for you, like maybe because of his fame, sort of, they could get caught. He also mentions the line, there's a line that says, milk from a fallen angel flows through my veins. And I thought this line was very interesting. I did a little research on that, and the term fallen angel, not the specific term, but the reference of it first appeared in the Second Temple period of Jewish history, which is when early Christianity was formed between 530 BC and 70 AD. And fallen angels were called watchers, and they fell after being attracted to and having relations with human women, and the offspring are thought to be full of sin and corrupt or demonic. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if that's a reference that he was going for, but it does really fit in with the theme of the album. This is also the song that mentions the album title. It says, "So kill this wolf and cut through my chains" at the very end. And there is a credit for the French horn played by Mike Fage. And I'm wondering, I don't know if this is maybe Cecilia's husband?
Oh,
anyone know?
I guess so.
He's on a couple of them. I don't know if he's just keeping it in the family there.
I really love this song. It's kind of a slight song, but it's really probably the most traditional folk piece that he's done up until this point. It's kind of an outlier in his catalog. He doesn't really have a whole lot of ballads quite like this. And it's interesting that I had a totally different interpretation of the lyrics. For me, I really zeroed in on the lyrics about how he's so adverse to change. It strains his heart and fills him with horror. Because that's so at odds with some of the other lyrics on the album, which really focus in kind of a celebratory way on the changing of the seasons. This comes up in Solstice and Farewell Summer Sun, even a little bit in October Sun. These are songs all about kind of the natural cycles of change and growth and life and death. And this song really touches on struggle with that. So I thought it was a kind of interesting flip side to some of what he speaks about later in the album.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
That's good. This song it's my favorite on the album. It's just, I think it's perfection. It's just the lyrics, the music, it's beautiful. I don't know what the fuck the lyrics are about. I always got like kind of like a religious feel to it, and again probably just because of my Catholic upbringing. But the fallen angel, kill this wolf, cut through my chains. I don't know, I just get like kind of religious imagery. Don't know if that's right. I don't really think too much about it. I just think it's beautiful. I think the lyrics are just so well done, and they paint a picture, but I don't know what that picture is.
I think that's the whole kind of thing with this album. Yes, there's a lot of religious overtones, and it's really, some of his songs are very, very straightforward, and it's kind of like they're on the nail or on the nose as far as the lyrics go. They don't leave a lot of it to interpretation. And then there's other songs like this that are so shrouded in imagery where it's really, I think the only person who actually really knows what any of it means is Matt, because they're really hard to decipher. It's just really anybody's guess. So I'm speculating a lot on the lyrics.
We all are. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. I gave this song 4 stars. I think it's a really great song.
I can't believe it, but once again, I'm going to agree. I think this is kind of, it's an album track. It's not really one of the songs that jumps out to you from this album, but it really draws you in. And once you listen to it a few times, it's sort of, as we've talked about, really kind of serves as food for thought about what he means by it and what the deeper meaning is. So yeah, I'd go with 4 stars as well.
I give it 5 out of 5. Lyrically, this is the best song on the album, in my opinion. 5 out of 5.
All right. Well,
see? I don't hate them all. I like some of them.
So far, y'all are being almost nicer than I am.
Yeah, you'll see. Hold on. You just wait.
Again, Matt loves his quiet, loud transitions, and from Fallen Angel, it propels right into Medicine. And this is probably the most straightforward indie rock song he's done up until this point. It's probably still one of the most straightforward indie rock songs he's ever recorded. So with slightly different instrumentation and of course different vocals, this sounds like it could be a Shin song.
This is one of those songs where if you're listening with headphones, which I highly recommend, it starts on one side monotone and then it blows up into full stereo, which is a very cool touch. There's a lot of multi-layered vocals, and Mark Morris is also featured on the song. The lyric that I really love, that just like totally is me in so many ways. He says, "The compost heap that is my mind." And I like relate to that in so many ways.
Who doesn't?
No. The song seems to have like a lot of self-loathing and self-doubt. Like there's always maybe somebody that's more important than him. He doesn't deserve something.
Right, more worthy.
Yeah, more worthy, exactly. I'm not a huge fan of the lyrics of this song. They're just kind of simple.
Yeah.
But the music is really good. There's 2 music videos, one an official music video that goes along with it that just features Matt, obviously, in a cute Western shirt. And Cecilia Phage is in it. She's wearing a witch's hat. And Mark Morris is playing the guitar. And Eddie Pillar is playing the drums. So that's basically the entire music video is just them playing instruments, standing in one position in front of a green screen with clips of the Grand Canyon is like I think the main clip, possibly the Grand Canyon, and then there's also a stripped down music video which is just Matt and Mark Morris in Matt's apartment, and they're sitting on his couch playing. Matt's playing an electric guitar, Mark's got an acoustic guitar, and really the thing that I love about this video is that you can see the Music for Insomniac's art on the walls, like the full 3 painting. He's got a painting of possibly a pheasant, which was
a grouse.
Oh, is it a grouse? That's right,
it's
a grouse.
The famous grouse.
And that was painted by Vic Reeves, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
he talked in another article about buying it from Vic Reeves.
Yes, that's what it was. I knew I'd seen that somewhere. I kind of feel like maybe they were pushing this one to be the big, important single. Maybe the one that would break through from the whole album, but
No.
it falls a little flat for me.
No.
It is catchy.
So-
It's definitely an earworm, but
It is an earworm for sure.
ultimately, I'm kind of with you. It's just a little uninteresting to me. I think experimental Matt is my favorite version of Matt, and that's really what he does best. And this song is just, it feels like he's kind of experimenting with something that's not really his wheelhouse.
It's also a little bit shouty.
It's a little shouty. It is.
Which I don't like his shouty songs. Like So Low, I didn't like that one. I mean, not that I don't like it, but it's got like that same tone to it. It's just shouty. I don't like that so
So-
much. It's not a good, like, that's not a good thing for his voice, kind of.
No. So I only realized about a year ago that he is saying the world is full of finer men and not the world is full of firemen. And honest to God, I wish I had never looked up the lyrics because I just want to think that he's saying firemen. I think that's way funnier. That's way more amusing. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say about this song, really. I don't really particularly like this song. I find it annoying. I'll be just blunt. I don't like this song.
Do they even
find
call
it
them
annoying.
firemen in English? In
don't know.
England?
I don't know.
I feel like there must be some.
They're like the fire
alternate-
brigade, aren't they?
The fire brigade.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be some
Which,
fancy British way of saying it.
incidentally, every time I see a fire truck, I say, hey, it's the fire brigade. No real
So
reason
fancy.
for that. Yeah, so fancy.
It's hard for us because we're not British, though, because we're like, I don't know. They're
Yeah.
like, firemen. What's a fireman, you idiot? You friggin' Canadian idiot.
But then I don't know what they actually
brigade.
do call them. Do they
I
firefighters?
don't know.
Maybe. I feel like that was
I'm going to
covered.
look this up.
We're so similar yet so different. Like in this latest episode of S is for Synthesizer, when Matt says something about one of the guys from some band, and then he's like, I can't believe I just said guys. I hate when people said that. And then he said fellas or something like that. I'm like, what? Wait, what else would you
Gents.
say? Like, that's literally our only word for, the guy from that band.
But
you
they
know, the
have
guy-
better words
The
for
guy
it,
from
though,
that
like,
movie. Yeah, they have like so many different descriptive words, and that's
Lads, fella,
Bloke.
gent, bloke. Oh, bloke. I love bloke. That's a good
I
one.
think he said that later in the episode.
I hate to disappoint you guys. Sorry, Matt. But I think they're called firemen in England, too.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't that far off. I
Feel
guess?
free
I
to
don't
correct
know.
me, British listeners.
Yeah.
You know they will.
Brigade.
They'd love to.
Yeah. They
And we
do.
love it too, though,
We do.
because we don't know shit.
No, we don't. Anyway, for this one, I gave it 3 stars just because I do really like the music part of it.
This is turning out to be a lot less contentious than I had teased at the beginning. I feel like we're letting people down here.
Damn it!
It's a 3-star song for me, too. It's catchy. It's solid pop songwriting. I'm just not sure that solid pop songwriting is what Matt does best.
I agree with that.
I'm giving it a 1.5 out of 5. It's not good.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That was a gauntlet thrown.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know people are gonna like, because I have a few on this album. You'll see. I feel like people are gonna be like, oh my god, Tara, like, what's wrong with you? Like, okay, listen, I loved, like, everything on Witch Hazel and Opium. Like, please just bear with me.
That's funny. It happens. I mean, we're all different.
He has so much. Like, he does so many things, and he's put out a lot of stuff, and I don't know, you can't love it all, or maybe you can, I don't know.
I'm sure there's some people that do. There might be some people that are just like, oh my god, I love this song, and it's just because Matt wrote it. But I'm not one of those
Yeah, I'm
people.
not one of those. No, I'm not one of those. We clearly aren't, if you've been listening to the
We
podcast.
aren't. And that's the thing. We're all like really big fans, and overall, we're huge fans. But, we don't like everything, and I think that's normal. Not everybody's going to like everything.
He is amazing, and he can do no wrong, but at the same time...
But sometimes he does wrong. All right, moving on to Wolf Quartet.
Now, speaking of songs which are not written by Matt, this is actually a Cecilia Phage composition. And this consists entirely of, as far as I can tell, a couple of woodwinds, clarinet and flute, both played by Cecilia. This is really less of a song than kind of an interlude. We were actually just talking about whether or not to even really consider it a full song, and we decided to because it does feel fully formed, and it has a great sense of atmosphere. It really lends a sense of tone to the album, but it is brief and sort of serves really to transition from Medicine, again, that kind of quiet, loud dynamic that Matt loves, to Solstice, which is really one of the centerpieces of the album.
I don't know what to say about Wolf Quartet besides I like it. I didn't know it was her, but I really like it. I was going to say nice. That's like a really weird thing. It's a nice
Very
song.
Canadian thing to say, Tara.
It is nice. To me, it does seem more like an interlude in between the two halves of the album.
Yeah.
Like, this one kind of sets up the next section, I think, a little bit more. But I also think with the song placement, it could have been used, maybe just the way the songs are placed on the album. They're kind of scattered as far as, like, the atmospheric sense of them and, like, the more literal pop song sense of them. They're a little bit scattered. But, I mean, I think that was probably just to keep it a little bit more interesting, too. But, yeah I think it's a little interlude.
It sounds very ominous.
It does. It does.
Very much in keeping with the folk horror theme of the album.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any stars for this one?
We like it. It's 4 out of 5.
4.5 for me. It's hard to really think of much more to say about it, but for what it's trying to do, I think it works really, really well. No complaints here.
Yeah, I give it like a 3.5. I have nothing negative to say. It's nice. I mean, it is what it is.
Nice.
It's a nice little tune.
That's what we think. It's nice.
So, Solstice. We have a couple of things that Matt talked about in some interviews. The first one would be from The Quietus from June 12th of 2013.
So the interviewer asks him, could you talk me through the song Solstice? How did you piece it together? Where Matt says, it was kind of a concept in my head to start with, where I knew I wanted it to go from the shortest to the longest day, and back to the shortest, so that kind of journey. That was what I had in my head, and I had the imagery of what would happen on the way, and then ending up where you first started off from. There's a line about taking pleasure in the seasons change, which is very important to me because due to work, I've had to spend a lot of time in Los Angeles where there's no change of season, and I always end up thinking, I couldn't live here. I need to see what autumn looks like. I need to see these kind of changes. That was the main inspiration for it, really. Getting off on the fact that it's starting to get colder, and the leaves are changing color, these really obvious things. The fact that it's that long, I've never had this problem with things needing to be 2 minutes and 50 seconds or whatever. If it takes 8 minutes to get the imagery across, then so be it, I think.
There was another interview from a retrospective from the Sound on Sound magazine from December of 2020. And he said, I'm fond of long form and an idea that has some sort of more than one part to it, he says. I've been doing that while it's been hideously unfashionable and then slightly fashionable. Actually, it's never been fashionable to do that, but I haven't cared. I've always been interested in music that has a bunch of ideas in it and isn't self-conscious of its own length. So speaking of that, this song is just shy of 9 minutes and 30 seconds, and it is a musical odyssey.
Watch the sun dip down on the shortest day. The farmer gathers up his lambs as they skip and play. The early snow lies thick, spreads across this field. It won't be long for the black cloak of night doth shield. I am a man who takes heart from the seasons change. I'll watch the sun dip down on the solstice day.
Which is a true prog rock epic.
It is. Again, if you're listening with headphones, which I recommend as usual, there's a very interesting echoey stereophonic effect right at the beginning that just switches from the left and right ears. The song is really, to me, when I listen to it, it gives me that feeling of being cozy. And being from Florida, I totally get the thing about craving change of seasons. I'm a Florida native. I've never experienced the change of seasons. I just for the first time this year saw the leaves change because I went up to New Jersey. So I got to see like some actual foliage change. But even with that, I absolutely can tell the difference in the air, even in Florida when there's no actual change in temperature usually, when it starts to become fall. And I absolutely love it. To me, it's just like the most magical time of year. Every once in a while we'll get a cold front, which is even better, but I totally, even having not grown up with it and never experiencing it in my adult life, I crave that. And I, eventually, because Florida is a cesspool and I can't wait to get out of the state, would really love to experience that. So whenever the weather here does get a little bit cooler, I always love to put on this record. And I really love to listen to Solstice because it just is so cozy to me. There's a little bit of an ominous twist to it, I think. Thomas Walsh and Tosh Flood from Pugwash do backing vocals. Andy Vickery plays the lead guitar. He also did the lead guitar on Woman, he did the big...
impressive guitar solo.
Yeah, the impressive guitar solo on Woman. And then just like The Pheasant, the vocals for this are only in the beginning and the end, and then all of the musical mastery comes in the middle.
Something that kind of surprised me about the vocals is that a few points you hear kind of a harmonizing female vocal, which I had always assumed was Cecilia Phage. That was actually created via synth. If I'm not mistaken, Cecilia Phage isn't credited on this particular song.
I do not think so.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You're right that this is really one of the proggiest songs in Matt's overture. It's right up there with The Pheasant as being pretty pure, undiluted prog goodness. It feels like a multi-part suite, as Matt talked about in that Sound on Sound interview. You hear a lot of the ARP Odyssey synth. You hear dramatic echoing vocals. This is full on that Mike Oldfield influence coming through. You also hear kind of a medieval influence in the lyrics. Some of these lyrics are a little florid. At one point he says, "The black cloak of night doth shield." He's definitely kind of leaning into his love of Old English folklore here and really embracing it.
And I think that's what he does best, actually. I think it's songs like this that are really, these are like his bread and butter kind of songs.
I think so too. I think it's pretty telling that even though he hasn't really made a lot of albums in the vein of Witch Hazel and Kill the Wolf, they're still what a lot of people think of when they think of his music. They really immediately go to this kind of English folk horror, whores of the countryside imagery.
Which is so funny because those are 2 out of all of his albums, but yet those are really, you're right, what people think of the most, even though The Small Hours was nothing like that. Phantom Birds was nothing like that. The Blue Elephant was nothing like that. Like, they're all of his albums, other than Kill the Wolf and Witch Hazel, go in a completely different direction. So I do think it's really interesting that that's more what he's known for, is this British folk sound.
Because how many other people are doing it?
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
And he is just so good at it, too.
That's
He
the
really
thing. He
is.
does it so well. Really, like he does it so well. So I really like this. I don't know how you couldn't like this. It's lovely, but some people would say maybe it's 3 minutes too long, and those people are me. It's me. It's 3 minutes too long. It should cut off right around 6 minutes and 30 seconds before the guitar riff goes in. I think that would be perfect.
Before the guitar riff goes in?
Yeah. Yes. I'm standing by what I just said. Yeah.
I don't agree.
Yeah.
But that's what you thought about The Pheasant, too. You thought that one was too long, too, didn't you?
I guess maybe around like 6 minutes.
You just have a short attention span, I think.
Your limit.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I just don't really like the guitar riff, and I'm sure that's controversial, but I just don't. I would personally give it like a 4.5 out of 5 if it cut off at 6 minutes and 30, but it doesn't, so it's a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
It's a song that takes you on a journey. You just have to ride the wave.
I totally agree.
Let it lead you along.
I want to get off at the 4th stop. I'm not in it for the whole way.
That's funny. I gave it 5 out of 5 because, like The Pheasant, I just don't think it gets any better than that.
4.5 out of 5 for me. And the only reason it's not a pure 5 out of 5 is because I don't think it hits the heights that we are about to hit in our next song. Sorry.
So moving on to October Sun.
So October Sun is one of the riffs that Matt has gotten a lot of traction from throughout his career. Even if you have never listened to his albums, if you've watched Toast of London, you have heard October Sun several times over. If you've listened to Music for Insomniacs, which we will be touching on very soon, you have heard October Sun. This song was actually initially written for Music for Insomniacs, and then he kind of lifted this riff and developed it into a full-on song for Kill the Wolf in a very different version, same melody, but a kind of very different interpretation. This is a song that really feels, to me at least, simple and streamlined despite having a pretty elaborate production. You hear some sound effects that start the song, horse noises, that clumping beat continues throughout the song. There's some really elaborate multi-layered strings. By my count, I think there's a ukulele, a banjo, a fiddle, and a violin on the song, in addition to an acoustic guitar solo by Eric D. Johnson of the Shins and the Fruit Bats. So there's a lot going on in this song, but it doesn't feel cluttered. Oh, and multi-track vocals too on top of everything. So there's a lot going on in this song, but it doesn't feel cluttered at all. It actually feels very simple and almost iconic to me, just in its melody.
Yeah, so it seems like this song also, there's more themes of religion and definitely, I think, some more themes of self-doubt. He mentions Michael, Peter, Mark, and John. Please forgive me for I have done you wrong.
Michael, Peter, Mark, and John, please forgive me for I have done you wrong. I sense evil, I feel it here today, like a bad dream that never goes away.
And again, I did some research because I know nothing about the saints or the apostles.
They're the
And
apostles, the dudes,
so,
main dudes.
Tara, you might be able to back this up then. So Saint Michael, I found, represents good versus evil. Saint Peter is the gatekeeper to heaven. Saint Mark is a patron saint of painters, among a lot of other things, and his symbol is the winged lion, which equals courage. And then Saint John, the patron saint of love and loyalty, and he was the only one of the 12 apostles to not forsake Jesus. So I think just considering these particular saints or apostles that he mentioned and what they represent, and then the line, please forgive me for I have done you wrong, is pretty telling about maybe some of the things that he's done that he maybe just doesn't feel good about, or, you know, that he's reflected on in the past.
I did similar research and came to a similar conclusion, or found similar information, I should say. And something else that I thought was interesting about Michael, who's the archangel, is that he is the helper of the church's armies against the devil. He's also known as the great captain or the heavenly host. And so that's a theme that keeps obviously coming up over and over during this album, this kind of fight between good and the devil inside me. And Michael is the one who leads that brigade against the presence of the devil. So kind of makes sense in this context that that's who he'd be appealing to.
Yeah, so I don't think there's a person in the fandom that doesn't like this song. It's impeccably produced. It's lovely. I would give it 4.5 out of 5. I think it's
Tara, I nearly had a heart attack there. I thought there was going to be a but, and I was waiting for it.
No.
Yeah, I kind of did too.
No, I don't see what you couldn't like about this, really. It's really good.
It's
I
beautiful.
say good so much. It's beautiful.
It is.
We love it.
Transcendent.
Transcendent. Yeah, I gave this one 5 stars also.
Are we going to agree for the second time ever?
What? 5 stars from all of us?
5 stars
No,
all around.
I said 4.5. Did I not?
Oh, you ruined
Oh,
it.
come on,
All right.
Tara.
We were so
Sorry.
close.
I can't lie.
We were
I
so
can't lie what's in my heart.
We were so
4.5.
close.
That's pretty damn close.
I have a feeling it's probably not going to happen for the rest of this album. But we almost got there.
No.
We almost got there.
No, this is it.
Got my hopes up.
All right.
So we should take a second and mention the transition between October Sun and the Signs, because I've spent more time than I care to admit turning this up with headphones and trying to figure out exactly what Matt is whispering there. You hear a few seconds of indecipherable whispering, and maybe some of you have better stereo systems than I do. Probably many of you have better stereo systems than I do, but I can't make out any of it. So I'll put out a call if anyone can decipher that, or if anyone has the ability to isolate audio. I'm very curious.
Moving on to the signs.
All this talk about reading signs, if I've heard that once, I've heard it 6,000 times. I'm a man who takes his time, leaving satisfied while the rest of you jive. Yeah! You can count me in, you can put me down, you can sign me up, I can turn it around. I don't know why, but the time feels right. I should settle down, I should say goodnight. Yeah! Oh my God, oh my life gets so close sometimes. If I had a map, I'd stick to that. Just ignore the signs.
This one just has a really funky 60s vibe to me. This one is one of those that's like got a lot of symbolism to it, and I can't tell if it's like really shrouded in symbolism or if this is one of the ones that are kind of like really obvious about what the meaning is. It's one or the other. I don't like to think that it's as obvious as it seems like it is, that he's just really bad at reading social cues and signs at life, and he's wishing there was some sort of a roadmap to help him make good decisions. I can't possibly be that simple. I just can't tell. This is one of those ones where I think it can go either way, but it's definitely a funky little beat to it.
See, it's funny that you went to 60s for this song, because what I immediately heard was early 80s, and particularly Bruce Springsteen, who definitely is not someone you associate with Matt's music at all, but Matt has actually named Springsteen as an influence. During the AM/PM podcast, he talked about his love for Springsteen and how Springsteen's lyrics in particular had influenced him. And I definitely hear that rubbing off in this song, in the sax solo and the electric piano. It's kind of another anomaly in his catalog, in that he hasn't done a whole lot that sounds like this. But I definitely hear that Boss influence bleeding through here.
I get that.
That would make sense, because it would explain why I don't like this song. I don't really like Bruce Springsteen, so...
I don't either, but
There
I
we go.
do really like this song. I am not a Springsteen fan at all. I don't even like 80s music at all. I don't get that era from it. I can see what you're talking about with the sax solo for sure, as kind of a Springsteen quality. Yeah, to me, it just goes to like kind of mid-60s kind of funk.
First of all, I can't believe you both, because Springsteen is a legend and really the last artist on my bucket list that I still need to see.
I know that's
The last living artist.
a really unpopular opinion, and he is on my bucket
Yeah.
list for somebody that I need to see live too. But
No,
I've just never really
but
been
I
a fan.
respect that.
Something else that I think is kind of worth noting about this song is that Matt's singing in a much higher vocal register than he does typically. Something, and I'll actually give full credit to Bree with Mess on the Mat for pointing this out, because this was her observation that I'm stealing. He sings in a similar register to ADBC here, and actually this song sounds a lot like one of the tracks that he sings as the innkeeper from ADBC.
It totally does. It totally does.
I do
You
not
said you didn't
find
like
this
it.
song. I don't find it interesting in any way. I don't hate it. Don't really particularly like it though. It's like a 2 out of 5 for me.
This is about a 4 out of 5 for me, and the only thing that keeps it from being a solid 5 out of 5, because musically I adore this song, and I adore the energy and just how kind of different it is from everything else in his catalog. But the weak spot here for me is the lyrics. He opens with, if you've heard it once, you've heard it if I've heard it once, I've heard it 6,000 times, which seems kind of arbitrary, like he just had to throw in something to keep the rhythm. He unironically uses the phrase, while the rest of you jive. He loses a whole star for use of the word jive. I can't. So 4 out of 5 for me.
Maybe that's where I got the 60s vibe from. Actually, this is one of the first, when I first started listening to Matt's music, this is one of the songs that I really caught my attention right away. And this is one that I would listen to on repeat quite a bit. I really love this song also, and I also gave it 4.5 stars.
You gave it a higher rating than I did.
Didn't you say 4.5?
I said 4 out of 5.
Oh, I thought you said 4.5. Yeah, I gave it half a star more because I don't mind the word jive. I think it sets the tone of the song. Oh, God.
So moving on to songs that I think we can all agree are just undisputed classics and high points of this album.
Yeah, some
Knock,
of us might not
knock.
have heard.
I'm stood outside in the rain. I can see him up in the tower. He's no idea of the pain now. I've been knocking on his door for hours. The wind whips high in the trees, and the bells ring loud in my ears. Like a broken man on his knees, I'm holding back my pain and tears. Knock, knock, knocking on the chapel door. He's ring, ring, ringing on his bell. I'm alone and so tired, and under some wicked spell. Knock, knock, knocking on the chapel door. Won't you please come down and let me in? It's a dreadful state of affairs, my friend, that I find my bad self in.
This is another song that Matt had spoken a little bit about during the promotional cycle for this album. He was asked also during the Quietus interview from June 2013. There are lots of sonic snippets scattered around your two Acid Jadis albums. They name the round at the end of Knock Knock as an example of this. Is this by design or the result of you cutting down masses of material? And he responded, a lot of it is by design. Design to the extent where if you attempt something, if it works, great. If it doesn't, that's bad luck. I must have thought that those things worked, which is why they're still in there. Something like Knock Knock, I was trying to do a Joe Meek, Johnny Remember Me type thing. And I also wanted 2 drummers. I'd never done anything where 2 drummers were playing independently, that kind of Concert for Bangladesh, George Harrison type sound, where there was Ringo Starr and that other drummer. I wanted that, and that was great fun, because I had my drummer and a mate of mine called Tony. This is
Tony Coote.
Tony Coote, thank you. Just looking that up. This is Tony Coote, who hadn't heard what my drummer had done, did what he thought, and it had this massive sound, which is hard to contain. But I think it's worked in the end. So, of course, being the music geek that I am, I had to go run to Spotify and look up Johnny Remember Me, which was a chart topper, #1 hit on the British charts by John Layton from 1961. And I know we kind of differed on this as we were talking before our recording, but I actually heard a lot of similarities between this song and Knock Knock. Superficially, they don't really sound the same. It's not like the same melody or anything, but they do have this kind of similar ghostly theme of ghostly possession. They have the same insistent beat. They have a similar spare kind of sparse ghostly production sound, which, just as an aside, is produced by Joe Meek, who's kind of a legendary British producer of this era. Really interesting guy. If you are, again, a music geek like me, do yourself a favor and look up Joe Meek. He is a fascinating figure. He ended up dying in a tragic way. He killed his landlady and then killed himself. But really, really kind of interesting story. So that's my little music geek minute on Johnny Remember Me and how it relates to Knock Knock. But going back to Matt Berry, this song feels a little bit to me like a short story. And what really works for me about it is it's a story where you don't know all the particulars. It's sort of vague in the details. You know that there's this narrator who's under some sort of wicked spell and stranded outside of a church, but the priest inside isn't letting him in. So is he possessed by the devil? Is he under a witch's spell? You don't know. You don't really know what's going on here. It's spooky and it's kind of gothic, and it just works for me so well.
I also wanted to mention that in addition to Tony Coote, it's James Sedge that plays the drums on this entire album. And James Sedge is also a maypole, And I actually didn't realize until I went back and really looked closely at the liner notes that he started on this album. I thought that was really cool. This is another one of those songs that it's either really shrouded or it's really obvious. To me, I kind of lean towards the more obvious, that it was a literal cry for help. Like maybe he was seeking out guidance from a religious leader because he was going through something like some sort of a crisis in his life, and his cries were literally falling on deaf ears because the priest or whoever it was so busy up in the tower ringing the bell, he didn't hear the cries for help. And so maybe that's kind of like another struggle with religion, possibly, like you wanting to go for help, but kind of getting ignored or getting the same answers over and over again, which are not helpful. The end of the song too, there's kind of another sort of witchy chant by Cecilia Phage. And at the end of it, it's in reverse, which just makes it sound cooler, really. I think she's saying the same thing. It just flipped to make it sound more mysterious.
Rise with the dawning sun. From wood comes a fire, burn my body. Comes a fire, burn my body. Comes a fire, burn my body. I'll rise with the dawning sun. Burn my body. Comes a fire, burn my body. Comes a fire, burn my body. I'll rise with the dawning sun.
It kind of digitally glitches and then flips, which is just the coolest effect to me. Like, it sums up this album so well. Tara, what do you think of this song?
Jesse, that's the impression I always got. He's, trying to talk to the priest or, whoever, and religion is kind of forsaking him, he believes, and it's just leaving him kind of out in the cold,
Literally out in the cold. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like, so I'm kind of torn because I like the lyrics. I like the kind of questioning of, I always kind of thought it was a little bit questioning of, religion and religious beliefs just because of that. I need you and you're not there. I'm bad and I know that I'm under, a wicked spell. Like, I need your help and you're just leaving me out here to suffer. I like that part. I don't like the song. I don't like the song. I don't ever listen to this if I can avoid it. I give it a 1.5 out of 5.
Oh. God.
I am aghast. 1.5? This is the best song on the album.
This is the other song that totally drew me in when I first started listening to Matt's music. I absolutely love everything about the song. I love the melody. I love the instruments. I love the dual drummer effect is amazing. And the lyrics are amazing, regardless of what the meaning really is. I just think it just paints a picture. It's just, you can see him standing outside, pounding on the door. The priest is ringing the bell, completely oblivious to the fact that he's there. I just think it's so visual, and it's just, to me, it's perfect. It's 5 stars from me.
Oh, sorry.
I'm also going to go with 5 stars. Sorry, Tara.
It's like Woman all over again.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I got a lot of shit from people for Woman, so maybe it's time for the tables to turn.
Oh, I'm prepared for it. I'm fully prepared for it. I know a lot of people like this album and don't agree with me, so bring it on. I think it's funny that you both are like such big fans of it.
I absolutely love that song. That one to me is like a real earworm.
I've never been a huge fan of Kill the Wolf because I was coming off of like, I listened to Opium, I loved Witch Hazel, and then Kill the Wolf. Like, again, I like that. Like, I like a lot of it, but I don't know. It just didn't measure up to me.
I don't know. For someone that really likes lyrics, and this one is a super lyric-driven record.
I know.
I like the lyrics of Knock Knock. I don't like
Oh God, I think that part's so good. I just think it goes so well together.
I don't think so. I'm probably alone on that. Send me your hate mail.
All right, moving on to Bonfire.
They all came to see the bonfire, dressed in ribbons. They look splendid. Fetch the wood, unlock the stable, clear the field.
another song that's really atmospheric and descriptive. This is another song like Solstice, also probably why I like to put this record on when it gets a little chilly outside, because it just makes me feel like there's a chill in the air and I want to just be under a warm, cozy blanket. There is a slide guitar played by Alex Robert Shaw from Everything Everything in the middle, which is a really cool touch to the song. And at the end, there's the sound of a flute with some sinister, creepy laughing.
Cackling.
Yeah,
That's what
it's
I
more
wrote.
like a cackle. Yeah.
Definitely a witch's cackle.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is probably, for me at least, the purest expression of this album, a fascination with the English countryside. Definitely runs with that pagan theme. He says in the lyrics, a gift to those watching over marks the end of October. So it goes back to this theme of changing of the seasons, making tribute to the English pagans worship the sun god who kind of oversaw the changing of the seasons, and I took the lyric of a gift to those watching over as a direct reference to that.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a pagan festival, like a description of some sort of a pagan medieval festival.
Exactly.
And
Maybe the old goose fair.
Oh, maybe. It's also interesting, too, that one of the instruments that are credited to Matt on this song is magic sounds. So I'm not sure what exactly the magic sounds, and it's magic with a K, which...
It's firecracker crackling noises.
I
Aren't there
don't
some
know, but that just
crackling
made me
noises in this?
think of something, which I don't know if it's related, but Damien Eccles, who is one of the West Memphis Three, which was a very sad and famous murder thing in the United States, he wrote a book, and he spelled it the same way with a K. It just made me think of his description of magic. I don't know why that just popped in my head. That's why I'm kind of rambling. Oh no, he spelled it with a CK. Never mind.
I feel like spelling it with a K is more like a pagan thing. I don't know if that's just something I made up, but...
His book was called High Magic, A Guide to Spiritual Practices That Saved My Life on Death Row, but it wasn't actually written until 2018, so I doubt that in 2013 this was any sort of influence on Matt. But maybe it was Damien Eccles' influence to write the book. I don't know.
I think it's like a Wiccan pagan way to spell magic, so it's probably fairly common and like an Old English way to spell it, kinda.
Yeah, I kind of think you're right now. I just remembered vaguely because I think I read it right when that came out, so it's been several years, but I was just thinking there was something about the way he spelled it that stood out. So maybe that's just what it was. It was just a Wiccan way of spelling it. So don't mind me. It was just a random tangent.
I don't like this song.
Blasphemy.
I think that this is the worst song on the album. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. I listened to it probably 7 times today being like, come on. Like, I kind of like the lyrics are kind of funky and like, I like that vibe. I don't like it.
It does have a slight nursery rhyme feel that I kind of feel like you are into or you're not. There's not a whole lot of in between with that sort of nursery rhyme chanting feel that Matt sometimes goes for.
I kind of agree. I'm not a huge fan of this. I do like the atmospheric quality of it. I like the way it makes me feel, but overall, I think it kind of drones a little bit. I only gave this one a 3.5. And I think it's kind of like with Gather Up. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that it's not really my thing.
4 out of 5 for me. It's, again, not really one of the standouts from the album, at least to me. But it is a really solid album track, and it is one of the songs that really kind of underlies and supports this theme of pagan folk horror that really defines this album.
All right, Village Dance. This is going to be interesting. Don't have a whole lot to say about this other than It's really kind of just an instrumental version of October Sun. Like, it's the same melody, but it's kind of fluffed up a bit. Like, I can't think of the word. It's not that it's fluffed up, but it's filled out more. And I think it's really beautiful as an instrumental, but at the same time, I kind of feel like it's just maybe some filler because he did it already. And I almost would have rather seen it as a B-side to a single rather than a track on the album. Although I really like the distant dreamlike vocals, like all the way in the background. And like I said, I think it's really beautiful as an instrumental, but just giving it a different name doesn't necessarily mean it's a different track altogether. I mean, maybe that's just me, but to me it sounds just like October Sun without the lyrics.
Oh, no, it is October Sun without the lyrics. Yeah. But I do think it's different enough that it merits its inclusion on the album. It, to me, sounds kind of brighter, more optimistic, a little bit sunnier, no pun intended, than October Sun. Worth noting about Village Dance is that this song is lifted directly for use in Toast of London, and specifically Toast of London Season 1, Episode 4. For that scene, if you've watched the show, you know what I'm talking about, where Toast is lusting over his girlfriend who is an army officer. He's got a thing for girls in uniform, and he pictures her as a paper doll trying on various uniforms. This song just plays in the background without any changes, with Matt singing over it some lyrics pertinent to the plot. That actually is one of my favorite Toast scenes. It's, I think, one of the best examples of what he does with the music of Toast of London, where he kind of uses the songs to add a layer of poignancy to what's going on, which is obviously pretty broad comedy. And yeah, that's kind of what I always think of when I think of this song. It's hard for me to separate it now.
I totally agree. And I think that's one of the cool things about Toast of London too, is that you really can, when you hear the melody, you can picture, it brings you right to that scene. Like, I always think paper dolls in uniform. So I really love that scene too. I think it's really sweet.
Yeah, if I hear this, I'm like, oh, it's October Sun, very slight remix. Like, it's just like, I don't see a point in having put this on the album at all. When I listen to it, I'm just like, I wish that I was listening to the actual October Sun.
Well, the actual October Sun is kind of a remix too, since it was written for Music for Insomniacs first.
I do agree that this version is, it does have a little bit of less of an ominous, more of a sunny quality to it. In general, I mean, I gave it 4 stars because there's nothing wrong with the song. It's beautiful.
I'd say 4 stars for me too. You can't see it, but Tara and Jesse are laughing at me and my squeaky voice. I apologize to anyone listening for my mouse squeak right now. It's
she's
a miracle my voice has made it this far. Jesse, you better do some audio wizardry with this.
Yeah. I'll see what I can do. I'm just glad that mine cleared up at least. That's one less person I have to, because this morning I was like, oh god, how the hell are we gonna do this, and when's the latest we can push this back to get it out on time? But mine ended up clearing up, and yours was better, and now it's worse, so we're both screwed.
We need to auto-tune, just auto-tune everybody, and it'll work out.
Yeah.
So, Farewell Summer Sun.
Oh wait, you didn't give it any stars.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 3 out of 5.
Okay, that's not so bad.
It's alright, it's fine.
Did I give it stars?
Yeah, 4 out of 5.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
We got distracted by your voice and we got off on a little tangent there.
Yeah.
Farewell to the summer sun as it dips below the hill. Now my world is calm and still. Praise and joy and safe return in hope to see you reappear and burn as bright this time next year.
So, Farewell Summer Sun, I think it's a gem. This is an excellent song. I think that this is as close to perfection as you can get. It's my absolute favorite on the album. This is gonna sound mean, but I don't particularly care for Celia Phage's part. She's a lovely voice. Like, she is a beautiful singing voice. I would absolutely prefer Matt to have gone solo. I like her, like, when she's doing the background vocals. I don't know, something throws me just a little bit with her part. But again, I really love the song. It's just kind of my little criticism.
Kissed goodbye, my love.
absolutely hilarious because I can like completely just flip that on its ear. That I have like the opposite thoughts on this song. It's one of my least favorite on the album, but the part that I really do like is the strong upfront vocals by Celia Page. I actually wrote that down. Strong upfront vocals by Cecilia Page on the middle verse. But overall, it's a good description of the changing of the seasons from warmer to cooler months. I mean, it fits with the entire theme of the album, and I actually do think it's a very good close to the album, too.
It's a good outro, for
sure. A good outro, yeah.
And I'm going to be boring in that I both find this one of the best songs on the album, and I like Cecilia Page's vocals, so I just pretty much like everything about this song. It feels like a lullaby sending you off at the end of the album. It's soothing. It's almost like a kiss off to the listener before Matt lets you go. And the lyrics really reinforce that theme of changing of the seasons, like you mentioned. I see this as kind of a companion piece to Fallen Angel, both in that they both sound like kind of soft lullabies. They both have that really slow, soothing ballad feel, but they also both speak to resistance as to change, and change is a part of life. Fallen Angel speaks to resistance to change and struggling with that resistance, and this is all about acceptance of change and, as we mentioned, parting of the season, saying goodbye to summer.
It goes back to the whole yin and yang of the entire album. The whole album has an opposing view. There's warm to cold, there's good and evil. There's all kinds of different opposites happening in the entire album, which I think is part of what makes it really interesting to listen to as a whole. It's not one that I like to pick out little things from, although I do. You know, I'll listen to the Signs in a mix, or I'll listen to Knock Knock. It's not that you can't, but if you listen to it as a whole, you really get a sense of what he was going for, which was nature. And I still don't feel necessarily the horrors of the countryside, because I still think if you're talking about, you know, witches in the form of Wicca or paganism, it's not necessarily scary. I think it's just being in tune with nature. And I think that's a really cool thing about this whole album. Also, I don't think that we've done stars on this yet, so I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself, but I like that he mentions October multiple times in this album, because that's when my birthday is. Also my favorite month.
Yeah, clearly a month that means something to him. Anyone's guess what? Maybe he just sensed across time and space that it is the month of your birth, and
probably
it felt meaningful to him.
I think that's probably the only explanation.
Certainly the most likely one.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely.
We'll go with that.
This is definitely a 5 out of 5. This is just a perfect little gem of a song.
I gave it 3.5. I don't dislike it. I don't love it. It's kind of just in the middle for me.
I agree with Courtney. It's a 5 out of 5. It's amazing.
All right. We literally don't agree on anything, do we? Like the three of us. It's so funny.
Tara and I agreed a lot more than I expected on this album. I really thought we were going to be just frenemies after we were done. And
yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I was really bracing myself for it to be a whole lot worse. Other than Knock Knock, I think it was...
There's just a few songs that I don't find are very good. And I know that that's still controversial because a lot of people just love, you know, the whole thing. And it doesn't hit like that for me.
I do. I love it as a whole. I think the whole thing is just really amazing. Also, we should mention that there is a making of Kill the Wolf video that was directed by Ben Meadows, and it's mostly an interview with Eddie Piller about how he and Matt met, and it just has clips of Matt playing various instruments with headphones on. He's wearing a really adorable t-shirt with a baby fox on it.
An airbrush baby fox.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. I've only seen it in that video, and it's so cute. I love it.
It looks like something you would have won at, like, the carnival or had made at the carnival. Maybe it's from the Old Goose Fair.
The Old Goose Fair. I was just going to say. Could it be from the Old Goose Fair?
But that's what it reminds me of, like those souvenirs you make when you go to the state fair or something.
Yeah. He does several wardrobe changes, I think, in this. I think he's wearing, like, a dark denim shirt, and then there's that one clip of him with the baby fox t-shirt. Love it. So it's just a nice little video. We'll put the link in the description, along with the links to all the articles that we mentioned, as usual, and the music videos. But
we should also mention before we wrap up that, just kind of looking backwards in retrospect, that obviously Matt recently released the Gather Up retrospective of his 10 years on acid jazz, and when that was asked in a couple of interviews around Gather Up what his favorite albums of his were. And in response to one of those interviews, or one of those questions from November 2021, he said, well, there's a couple I would say, possibly Kill the Wolf and The Blue Elephant. They sounded exactly like I had in my head, pretty much. So yeah, this is one of the albums that Matt kind of feels came out like he envisioned and like he wanted it to. And I think that says a lot about his own aesthetics and what he kind of tries to accomplish with his music. So there you go. Pure, undiluted expression of Matt's vision.
Yeah, and I also think it's reflected. It's reflected in the fact that he had a record deal when he made this album, so there was more resources to put into it, even though he still played the vast majority of the instruments himself, even though he still recorded it in his flat. You know, you can tell that there's a higher quality that went into it. He even mentioned something about switching from GarageBand to Logic when he was mixing and editing this, so you can just definitely hear the difference in quality between Witch Hazel and Kill the Wolf. It's just a much more polished album. So overall, I give Kill the Wolf 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Jesse, I thought that we were going to be much more, because you were supposed to be Switzerland in this album, but I would actually agree. 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Switzerland is that I don't dislike anything, really. Like, I don't have strong dislikes of anything going forward, I don't think. But, I mean, there's some that are definitely better than others. But, yeah, I mean, it's not my favorite of his albums. Otherwise, I probably would have given it 5 stars. But it's so well done. And it's just so good listening back to it again. And really, I think you get a whole new appreciation for it when you're doing it in this sort of context. Like, you either are sick of it because you've listened to it so much, but that first time when you're listening to an album and you're really paying close attention to it and you really want to, you know, make some notes, jot down details, it's just, this one especially, out of the ones that we've done so far, I just picked up on a lot of things that I never really paid much attention to before, and just really appreciated some things that I kind of have overlooked before, including the liner notes and the illustrations and everything. It's really well done.
It's a 3 out of 5. It's all right. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good is more than I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, like, it's pretty good. I don't hate it. I just, this isn't one that's in my rotation.
All right.
Well, it is one of my favorites, so that means I have to up my rating. I'm going to officially give it a 4.75.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. That's fair.
Well, thank you all for listening, as always, and I will give a special thanks on this one for giving my creaky voice, and a few of us are recovering from colds, so our general kind of squeakiness in that regard. As always, you can follow us on social media at Obsessed Obscure on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and we now have a Discord channel as of today.
Yeah, so you can get the invitation is on all of our social media. There's an open invitation for anybody that wants to join.
Come join our Discord and chat about the music with us. We'll see you in a few weeks, and thanks as always.